Welcome to the What's Up Already podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm with my co-host Mattson.
Hey, yo, Adrian. Better read than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
So glad you didn't do that, Alec. I thought you were. I was like, uh-oh. Be a lot of uh-ohs to start. Welcome. We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell some family members about us. Tell a boxer about us. We used to have a boxer on the podcast for a long time, so we are uniquely qualified to entertain them, I think, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. If you couldn't tell by Mattson's intro there, we are continuing with our AFI Top 100 movies we love from that list, voted on by our Patreon members. Rocky, the original, Rocky 1. It was released December 3rd, 1976. It was written by Sylvester Stallone. It was directed by John G. Avildsen. Stars Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, Burgess Meredith, Thayer David, Joe Spinell, Jimmy Gambino, and Bill Baldwin. It's about a small-time Philadelphia boxer gets a supremely rare chance to fight the world heavyweight champion in a bout in which he strives to go the distance for his self-respect. Yeah, what a good movie. This one's look, this was my choice, but as I picked Silence of the Lambs and we had some other heavy topic movies that we've covered already this month, I was like, we need some happier shit. So my other two picks, this one and the one next week, were the ones that I was like, okay, these will make me feel better about life. But this one, I always forget how, like, I think about Rocky and I think about the Rocky franchise, right? Like, and barring Rocky 5, the rest of these movies are all really good in their own
Rocky
way.
5
is a dumpster fire. But like, this one is not as lighthearted as the rest. Like, this one's kind of heavy for a good portion of it. And I think that's one of the things that I like the most about it is it's like this, the little guy gets a chance, but I love that it doesn't turn out the way that every little guy gets a chance movie does, right? And so, but I think this is one that's really odd for me because I don't think about Sylvester Stallone and go, this is a screenwriter and this is a phenomenal actor. But this movie kind of proves that wrong. Like, and I obviously, look, he wrote it and he wrote it for himself to play it, understanding himself and knowing. He did the same with Rambo First Blood, right? Like, he wrote those understanding who he is, which is why there's not a lot of dialogue for him in Rambo, which is why in this one he kind of plays a knuckleheaded, dim-witted dude because it fits who he is. Now, look, Sylvester Stallone's not stupid. Like, if you've ever listened to interviews with Sylvester Stallone, he's very smart, but he plays dumb really well. And so, and quiet and, thoughtful and that kind of thing very well, especially this time in his career. So it works watching this movie. And Alec and I had a quick conversation before Mattson was able to join, but like, he's kind of dumb in this movie and it works so well. And him and Burgess Meredith and Talia Shire and even Burt Young to a degree, like, those four, man, they're really good together in this film. I think the acting sticks out, which is not what I think about in most Rocky films, right? But in this one, it does, at least for me.
Yeah, I think that might have to do something with the fact that this is not necessarily a boxing movie, where the rest of them are. This is the Rocky story that ends with a boxing match. And then now that sets the tone. So this is like the prequel backstory type of a thing. So we get a lot more of that kind of down-to-earth scenes where we have these real moments that you're looking at like, oh, yeah, I've done that. Or, I heard about someone who's gone through that shit. Or, yeah, I can relate there. I can see it. And so you have these kind of really relatable moments. And we talked about this a little bit, JJ. I think the premise for this movie is stupid.
Oh, yeah.
But it works. And it works extremely well.
Tell us why you think it's stupid, Alec.
Okay, nobody gets a shot at the world heavyweight championship in pugilism. Like, no, never. And they're definitely not picking someone from Philadelphia.
Or someone named the Italian Stallion.
Yeah, like this isn't ever gonna happen. It's such a stupid premise for a movie, but it's almost like JJ, you hit the nail on the head when you said it's so stupid that it's good.
Yeah.
Like it should not make any sense. It should be a terrible movie, and yet somehow it's one of the greatest ones ever made. Plus, I've run up those steps to the art museum.
It's a lot of fucking steps, dude.
They do not make it look as tall as it is in the movie.
No, it's like, brutal.
It is a hoof and a half to get up there.
Yeah, when he sprints at the end of that montage, I'm like, fuck you. Like, give me one of those motorized. Like, I haven't even run up them. When I was a young man in shape, I've walked up those and I thought I was going to die. Like, it's a lot of fucking steps, dude.
Y'all are soft.
Come on.
No, there's
Have you ever been there?
Yes, I've been there.
Okay. I was going to say.
I've been there actually a couple times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I dare say on one of our podcasts I probably said this, or maybe at least I'm sure I've talked to Alec and JJ separately. There's few movies, but fewer characters that if you were a kid growing up in Philadelphia and you go up this step, you'd think Sylvester Stallone's character, you're talking about Rock, you'd think he's real. Like, you would literally think he did what he did. Like, that's how ingrained this movie is in the city of Philadelphia and just in like pop cinema. Like, you literally, like, he's like, Rocky's on par with like Santa Claus, like, no joke. And then another individual that's played a character like that is like Arnold Schwarzenegger with Terminator, for instance. Like, you could literally think like Terminator is Arnold, and same thing for Rocky. And that, to me, and maybe there's one or two of the people that should fit. And if there is someone you guys like, I guess like Harrison Ford with Indiana Jones, but it doesn't have the same feel, like, to me, like Arnold and Rocky, for instance. Like, I don't know if there's anyone else that is on par with those two. When I think of that, like, they are inseparable. Like, they're so, I mean, there's a literal there ain't a statue of the Terminator, but there is of Rocky in the city, and you'd think it happened.
Yeah,
that's how crazy it is. And I like, it's hard to think of a movie that is so transcendent and so tells the story of what a city believes in themselves that has come out on screen in the way that it did. And for that, like, Rocky has such staying power and believability in that fact, because it tricks you to think that this, I mean, if someone that hadn't seen it and I had them, they probably would ask it, like, hey, was this based off a true story? And if they put that on, you'd be like, damn straight it was, but clearly it wasn't. It's totally fabricated, absolutely outlandish. But man, they do a good job making you feel it because of the deep-rooted story of as Alec said, it's not a boxing movie. It's a story of life that ended with a few punches thrown in a ring. And I just think that's an amazing story that's told. And that's why I think it's so beloved, because it just feels so real, but it isn't. It's a magic trick done through millions of eyes, and it works every time.
Yeah. And I think I told you this, Alec, earlier. I think it's relatable on a level, even though I'm not a boxer, like, but we've all been through some shit, right? And we've all had some places in our lives where, like, I want this for myself, but it's not working, right? And then what would that feel like to have just this thing fall in your lap and you're like, fuck, I want to make the most of it. And then there's like this level of trepidation. Well, there's a reason I haven't gotten this opportunity before now. I've had people like, that I wanted to mentor me that weren't willing to do so for what, and then you start, that self-doubt creeps in, but then you find a way to do something. So I think it's so relatable because we all kind of want to be Rocky in a certain way, like maybe not a boxer, but whatever it is that our passion is, we'd love to do that and find that. But most of us may or may not get that opportunity obviously not in the same way, but I think those emotions, and I think that's why there's certain scenes in this movie that really get me, like where I can rewatch them anytime. One of them, and I think this standout in one of my favorite scenes, period, in all of movies, is this movie between Rocky and all I think of is Burgess Meredith. I can never, like, but when he's he's talking to Mickey in his apartment. Mickey comes over, kind of tail between his legs, but not willing to say, I fucked up. I should have been training you. You got this opportunity. Now I want to be your manager. And Rocky's like, dude, I've been coming to you for 10 years. Like, you told me no, you took away my locker. So there's this level of sadness and frustration and then anger. Like, I love that whole scene. And a big piece of it is Burgess Meredith's ability to act. Like, when he just is rambling, trying to win Rocky over, talking about, I used to do this and I did this. And then, Rocky disappears into the bathroom to get rid of him. And he put 73 years old. Like, I don't have anything to show for what I've done. I need you to be it. And then he just turns around and walks away. And then Rocky loses his shit. But then ultimately they come together because they realize they need each other. Like, I just think that it's so poetic and it's such a well-written, well-acted scene. Like, I could watch that scene over and over again. Like, I look forward to that scene every time I watch this movie.
My scene that I look forward to, that's how winning's done. That speech. I mean, you talk about Sylvester Stallone not being the best writer or the best actor, but man, he hit gold like that. I've been in gyms where they take part of that phrase and then they have them with like the iconic Rocky fist. And for me, there's times in my life where I'll just watch that speech and just get just feeling good. And I'm not one to get too low or too high in life, but I've actually sent most of that speech or parts of that speech to people in my life and use that as like, hey, watch this. You need to pick me up. Like, this will get you there. This will get you going. And again, that's just like, that's it from a movie that means nothing, but then can mean everything. Because what's said in that, I mean, those are true words, because life does beat you down. It's like Alec was talking about. This movie is a story about life that comes out through boxing. And it's just a sense of perseverance. And I think the common thread that everyone can relate to is whether you're super rich or super poor, at some point you're going to go through something. And this movie does the best job of telling what those emotions feel like.
Yeah. What's your scene, Alec? We thought, it just turned into a weird segment, but I like it.
I was unprepared for this segment, but I either got to go training montage, because I love a good training montage, or kind of the publicity that Rocky gets. Where it's like, this guy, they try and build him up as like this, beaten down hero type of thing in the media, and he kind of throws it back at him. Yeah. He's like, he stays himself, right? So he's not playing into anything, and he kind of just sticks to his guns and stays Rocky, right? And I always like that, because that is something that I feel like is probably towing that line of unrealistic, because most people would totally buy into it, right? And then I think it makes that ending where you lose a lot worse if you kind of built yourself up a little bit, got that ego. But for him, it was never really about winning, right? It was showing him that it was showing people that he deserved a spot at the table. Winning would be a bonus, but it's for Rocky, his entire goal is, I belong up with the best. I can be one of the best. And so that's why you get this kind of great moment with the Adrian. And so I think I like the fact that he kind of sticks to himself when the media and everybody's trying to give him that, time in the limelight.
Yeah. I like too the fact that, like, for him, like when it first happens and they ask him, like, it almost becomes like this joke of him being able to like win over Adrian. Like, he's like, how'd you hearing your name on TV? Like, that's the shit that he's using this for, is like to impress a girl. It's like one chance he's got to do that, right? And then but I think that's why, to your point, like most people would fall for that level of fame. You're like, oh, soak it in, but this guy is just so simple that he's like, this isn't gonna last. Like, in his mind, it's never gonna last. And especially at that early point where he's like, dude, he's going to beat my face in. Like, I'm going to lose. This is silly. I just want my 150 grand and I want that shot. But I love the fact that he uses like these just silly things to get what's important to him, right? Like, it's all about what's important to Rocky and what he wants. And I think a lot of us would be better off in life if we thought that way to a degree. Like, obviously Rocky's a simple dude, but at the same time, like, take care of people that need taken care of, do what you got to do to get through life, but also realize that when great things happen to you, just let them happen to you and get what you need out of them and do what you want to do. It doesn't have to become more than what it is, right? And I think that's, I don't know, maybe that's me being oversimplistic about it, but I like the idea that it's not, he doesn't lose himself, kind of to your point. I think that's great and a good call out.
All right. I'm bringing back our trivia segment here.
Yes.
I got distracted. So what do we think the budget was for this movie?
It was pretty decent, I think.
125,000.
Okay.
I'm going to say 750,000.
You were both wrong. It was just over 1 million, which ironically enough was quite low according to the time frame when this movie was shot.
Sure.
This movie was shot in 28 days, which that seems shocking to me. Like, that's short for what I thought it would be. Let's see another fun one that I can give us. While I'm thinking of another trivia question, the scene where he runs up the Philadelphia Museum of Art was done in one take. Like, that's hard to do, I feel like.
I didn't want to run up those stairs again because there's a lot of them.
A lot of them.
Let's see here.
Well, and they got a weird angle to them too. Like, it's not
it's
not like a normal flight of stairs.
No,
like
the camera doesn't do it justice either.
No,
it's a lot
weird.
higher than that, and yeah, they're like uneven steps.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Mattson.
No, I'm trying to think what else. Not a trivia question per se, but the reason they show him punching those slabs of meat, they couldn't, obviously their budget was at a ton, but it was more than they thought, but they didn't have enough money for a choreographer, so they had to get creative on, hey, I would have loved to have been a part of that conversation, but like, let's just put him in front of some meat and just let him go to work, like, just like beat the shiz out of this. Let's see. I'm trying to think. There's nothing else good in terms. Oh, wait, last one. How many days did it take Stallone to write the script for Rocky?
Ooh, I'm gonna say 6 days.
3.5.
Wow.
And last trivia question: which he was inspired by a boxing match? One of the boxers you'd never guess, but the other one is an extremely famous boxer that he was watching that influenced why he wanted to write this movie. Do we know who that boxer was?
George Foreman?
Not a bad guess. You're close. Alec, can you get it? Muhammad Ali. We are correct.
Nice.
Yes, sir. And last thing I'll end on, the name Rocky comes from a boxer named Rocky Marciano that was undefeated.
Yeah. I used to have a t-shirt with, like, my dad was a huge Rocky Marciano fan. I used to have a t-shirt with Rocky Marciano on it. I had no idea who he was, but it was a cool t-shirt. Yeah. So do you know the story, Mattson, about like why he wrote this? Because like he was trying to be an actor and he couldn't get work. And so he's like, fuck it. I'm going to write it my own shit. And he wrote this for himself. And then he tried to sell it. Everybody wanted to buy it, but they wouldn't let him play it. And that was one of his rules. And so finally this studio let him do it. And fucking, it's a good thing they did. Oscar winner shit, AFI top 100. Come on now. One of the greatest franchise. Yeah, it's huge. Only one real misstep in the midst of,
well, it started off
like 9 movies now.
Yeah, 9 movies with Creed.
With the Creed
coming
3.
out in 2023. But it started off the turf war between him and Arnold, basically. Without this movie, there would have been no 1980s action hero turf war, which I just watched a documentary on Arnold talking about him and Stallone. And technically, Arnold was the higher grossing actor, but it was fun to hear they brought Stallone on to talk about it a little bit too. Just really interesting time because their physiques and their actor style, like they're not. We already know they're not the best actors. They're certainly not. They're the more like the Keanu Reeves category. But it just played so well to their physique, and it just skyrocketed. And to think, if this didn't go well, that Rambo and all the Rocky movies and some other of the movies I know Stones and I should be able to mention, like it would never have happened. And like to think that wouldn't have happened, maybe even Arnold wouldn't have happened if that were the case. Like just crazy to think like these little things could have changed the shaping of cinema as we know it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and I've poo-pooed on Sly almost my whole life about not being a great actor, but there are moments, and this movie has a lot of moments where he's really good at what he does. Like, and not the least of which is, like, I think one of the great scenes too in this one is the skating rink, like where he's running around this rink talking about bad ankles and like talking about all his fights with this shy girl, trying to get her to open up. And like, it's just so down to earth and normal. And he plays it so funny that you just can't help but go, man, this guy's so cool. And so again, like the fact that he wrote for himself and knew where his strengths were and like what was going to work for him, and still had the wherewithal to write a good movie. Like, it's crazy to me. And it's impressive. And I also think of Rambo. We mentioned Rambo. He wrote Rambo as well.
And I had no idea he did. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And like the final, I don't know how much you guys have watched Rambo. It's one of my favorites up there too. And like that final scene when he's in First Blood, where he's in that sporting goods store and the general or the colonel comes in and he starts like having the flashbacks and like the PTSD is really coming through. And he's talking about like his fellow soldiers and thinking how it's never over. And like, fuck, dude, like that is one of those scenes where I'm like, this is another masterclass in acting, because I believe him. And I think part of that comes from the genius of writing, that he probably has 25 lines in the whole movie up until that point. And so you don't have to be like, geez, this guy can't really act. Like, but you get to a point and you're like, fuck, I believe everything he's doing right now. So I think while Stallone, I think he also suffered from like some shitty movie choices, like Mama, whatever. Like, what was the one where he was the cop and his mom helped him solve the case, or Stop or My Mom Will Shoot? Like, come on. Like, if you look at some of his more serious movies, and even some recently, like when he wrote, because he also wrote the Rambo later, like when he was an old man Rambo, the one that was just called Rambo, that was also a pretty good performance, even though the action was way over the top and ridiculous. Like, the subtle performances when he's on the boat on the river, like very good acting. But again, like I just think this movie started it. To your point, like it also started I don't know that we have sports movies the way we have sports movies without this, right? Like we had some prior to 1976, but they weren't like this. Like you don't have the level of montages and that feel good moments of like. So I think he really started a trend with this movie, and a lot of
the music overlays and the cut scenes, and also just more physical acting as well. And that being an art that's appreciated in a way that just wasn't like martial arts, for instance, but just transitioned to other areas. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if we could say that. Doing this now, it makes me want to do like a month where we do like a versus between maybe Arnold and Stallone, or some like one or two other people we come down and say who's our favorite, who embodies the action hero in the best way possible that we love the most. Because they're never the greatest movies, but man, they're the ones that they're just so easy to turn on and put back time and time again. And there's something to that.
Sure.
I can answer that question. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, no.
What's the one that I should be able to name? The fighting one where he's in like
Bloodsport.
Yeah. Bloodsport. I mean,
Kumatai.
Look,
yeah, that's a great. There's, I'm not gonna look. I hate Jean-Claude Van Damme, but here's the other movie that's
can't hate on that one too long.
No, you can't, because that's a great movie. The other one that like I had a big thing for that, because like Stallone's got some terrible shit like Over the Top, but I'll watch Over the Top any day of the week. Like, what a fucking great movie, even though it's horrible. Like, it's so bad.
So that's what I think I feel like, listeners, you can chime in, but I'd love to. We take what we believe is the best one of each of them, and like Bloodsport. I guess we just did Rocky, but we've already done Terminator 2. I don't know, but it would be fun to stack it, or we just do a podcast where we talk about that topic, because I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jeez. I don't know, dude. The Universal Soldier is pretty fucking good too. The first one, anyway. But back to Rocky. I had one more scene like that I think about a lot in this one, and it's not really a scene, but the whole end of this movie. So one of the things that I've always appreciated about it is all of these movies, when I think about sporting movies, and even starting in Rocky 2, you see it in Rocky 3, like there's like a trend that happens to where they lose or they realize they're going to lose or they get out of it because of a certain loophole and then they come back and they win, right? This is one of those movies that they don't win. I mean, he wins, right? For what he's trying to do, he wins. He goes the distance. He puts up a fight. He makes Apollo Creed realize this guy's no joke. Like the public are like, holy shit. But he doesn't win the fight. And I appreciate that. Like, because for all the feel good we get out of these movies where this underdog comes and they win and we're like, yes, I love that. It's not realistic. Let's just be honest about this shit. If this were real life, Rocky would get the living fuck beat out of him.
Freaking Apollo Creed's got muscles coming out of his muscles. The dude, like, Sylvester Stallone's like no lightweight, but dude, you take a punch on the chin from that guy, he's not getting up.
Yeah. Well, and like he's just not. This guy's, Apollo Creed's been doing it for years now. He's got the best trainers. He knows, like, he's the best. Rocky's got 5 weeks of training, like formal training. The rest of the time
he chased chickens, right? Chicken training. Come on.
And feeding turtles like a pro.
Beating up meat. Oh, those turtles, by the way, fun fact. Those were Stallone's turtles, and they're still alive today.
Wow. That's cool. I did not know that. Now I want to see these fucking turtles.
Let me tell you the names really fast for our listening audience. Their names are Cuff and Link.
Of course they are.
Of course
they are. Of course. Yeah, that's funny.
But I have to say that the actor that plays Apollo Creed, what is his
Carl
name?
Weathers?
Yeah,
Carl Weathers. Sorry,
what the fuck, Mattson?
I'm pulling a JJ right now. Forgive me. JJ can't make fun of me because happens way too often to him.
Absolutely.
This movie needed. I'm glad they wrote in. They needed someone that had, and they do this through the Rocky movies. Either they have the swag, or they're just like a deadbeat Russian killer. And but you need this movie because it was so real and down in the mud and the grit. Like you needed the flash of Apollo to kind of give you the other side of it, and I appreciated that because I think if they went and just stayed too real to it, at some point I need a little bit of the movie veil to like bring that side of the magic to me, and I appreciated that. And I thought Carl Weathers played. I mean, I love him in the second one. I love the relationship they build further from that, and he's one of my favorite people in this movie. I just want to give him some justice.
Yeah. I mean, without him, the first three Rocky movies just don't.
I don't think Rocky goes where it is. Especially like Rocky 2 and 3 to an extent, like it wouldn't be the same. I don't think so.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rocky wouldn't even be around if it weren't for him in 3. Like,
it's fair
because he gets his ass whooped by Mr. T and freaking Mickey dies, and spoilers, but I mean, come on.
1980s, JJ. It's not spoilers when it's 40 years ago.
That's fair.
Let's just never talk about number 5. Never.
No, it doesn't exist in my fucking Tommy gun. Jesus. But yeah, I'm with you. Carl Weathers is great. I always think about Chubbs too, like him and fucking Happy Gilmore. I love Carl Weathers though. He's great. I think of him in Predator as well. Like, just great actor all around. And he does add a lot to this movie, like that cocky attitude but has the the skill to back it up, and then has to bring that shit out.
Well, they needed him because it's clearly a better actor in my opinion overall, and he can carry the swag, and you needed the words. And that type of, because that's not what Stallone's strength. He's just kind of like, playing the dumb guy and did it well. But you needed someone that had that swag and the suave and the confidence to carry a lot of the dialogue forward in kind of some of those verbal sparring matches, because it would have been uncompelling.
Sure. Yeah. No. Overall, just, great freaking movie. I think that's all I had. You guys ready to rate it?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to actually hit this with a shocker, okay? And I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. Here's why. I love this movie, and I think it's perfectly written. I think it's perfectly acted, but it is a little long. Like, there are moments in the middle, like, and I point directly to the scenes specifically between Adrian and Rocky and her brother, which I should remember his name, but I'm having a me moment right now. I can tell you Burt Young's the actor, but I can't tell you. Yeah, Paulie. We see it too many times, in my opinion. Like there's maybe one too many scenes with Paulie, the three of them. Like we understand Paulie's PTSD, military, not a nice guy, but cares about people, but has emotional and issues that are creating this asshole. We understand that Adrian's shy and needs to come out of her shell, and Rocky's helping her do that. And Rocky's who Rocky is, and the three of them need each other, right? But I think it's like 4 or 5 scenes where it's just the three of them replaying the awkward dynamic of the three of them before they figure it out. And I think you could have done away with 1, maybe 2 of those scenes. And I will be honest, like there's a couple of them when I watched this on my own, like, and I didn't for this because I like to watch them all the way through when we talk about them. But typically I'll skip. Like I watched to Thanksgiving, and then like I think there's 2 scenes after Thanksgiving with the three of them that I skip past because I'm like, whatever. I know I don't need that. It doesn't add value the 3rd and 4th time for me. So that's what makes it a 4.5 instead of a 5. I think if you cut those couple of scenes, to me, it's a 5. But it's such nitpicky shit for me because it's about a 2-hour movie versus an hour and 35-minute movie. That's the difference to me. But I don't think it adds value, which is important to me. And that's kind of where I talk about last week when we talked about freaking the Silence of the Lambs. There's nothing that I could cut that doesn't add value, right? This one, I think you get the same movie without those couple of scenes. At least one. There's one between the final, like, throwing her ass out, I need a roommate, and like do you need a roommate scene, and then like the Thanksgiving scene. There's one more in there that I'm like, I don't need that. But yeah, anyway. So that's me, 4.5. Because it was my choice. I went first. Alec, you go, buddy.
All right. So I think I'm gonna give it a 5. I like this movie. I think Sylvester Stallone does a really good job when he's pulling on your heartstrings, on your emotions. He's very good at drawing that emotion out of you and putting the dialogue in places for that to happen. You know, Mattson talked about the speech in this film. We kind of mentioned it in other stuff that he's done, Rambo and stuff like that, where he pulls on your heartstrings, gets your emotions involved with no dialogue, and then he hits you with the slam banger of a speech, and it just makes you weep because it's that good. So I'm going to give it a 5. Rocky's always one that I'm going to sit down and watch. And I like it in the sense that it doesn't really matter where you start this movie. You can start it anywhere, any point throughout, and you can still have a great experience watching it. So yeah, it's a 5 for me. Love it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to beat a dead horse like Jay. He stole my thunder. So I'm going to +1 that. The Paulie scenes for me at times, they're taxing. Having seen this movie so many times, I actually do the same thing at times, Jay. I just skip parts of them because I've seen it. I know it. I get it. I don't need it like 3 or 4 times. The only other thing I'll say is at times, like they honestly get more outlandish as the series goes. The suspension of disbelief during the fighting,
sure.
At times, like I don't care, but I've seen like what they get better about in some of these the Creed movies and some of these other movies that have come after is they make it like Fighter or Warrior, for instance, like make it more believable. And even the Creed ones, in my opinion, it just feels like more realistic fighting. Rocky can only get knocked down so many times before the dude's going to be brain dead on a stretcher kind of thing. And like sometimes it makes me chuckle. It's not a bad thing, but yeah, like it's not. I dock it slightly. That would probably be like a 0.25, but the Paulie thing gets me to 4.5. So it's an amazing movie. Like always going to watch it. One of the most iconic characters in all of cinema that you literally think is still alive today in Philadelphia and has won a championship, multiple championships, but
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it's true. I do laugh at The Rock because that many headshots, direct headshots, clean headshots.
Oh, the Soma ones, you're like, dude,
they're all fucking dead. Like, it's I laugh. Like, yeah.
And if not Rocky 1, Rocky 4, the dude has died and been resurrected.
For sure.
Have you seen the dome on Rocky? Nothing's getting through that.
Well, it makes sense with Adrian, how she's like, no more fighting, because she knew what we all knew. It's like, clearly, they don't show him after the fight walking around his house the next day, because he's not walking. He's literally sprawled on the floor, crawling, calling for his mom.
It's terrible. Yeah, but I get it, too. Like, nobody wants to watch a bunch of punches get blocked in a movie.
Yeah,
but...
Yeah. I think they could have done it slightly more tastefully. I know it was the underdog mantra. That's he took the punches. He didn't necessarily dish them out as much, but it's fine.
Yeah,
I
love it. No, I'm with it. I'm here for it. All right. Well, there it is. Another high score for another AFI Top 100. That's Rocky 1. Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to, JJ. So thank you for once again turning into our review of Rocky. Pugilism really hits its stride in this film. You know what I mean. This is one of those up there with the greats, and for good reason. You know what I mean. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you. Leave us a like or a comment, as it helps us grow. You know what I mean. Shout out to our current patron, Guy Pearce's South Pole. We think you're great. You know what I mean. With that, I will send it back to the King of Crash, the Titan of Terror, JJ. You know what I mean.
That running gag shouldn't have been as funny as it was for me. But it tickled my funny bone. And with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yo, Adrian, we did it.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out. Well, whoa.